What's going on, everybody? I am here to do a review for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, before we get into it, I know some of y'all said after what happened with the whole Jim Carrey situation, many of you would not actually go see it. But after seeing the first one, I said, let me go ahead and watch it. And like I told people before, and I'm going to say it here, I did not go see this movie strictly for Jim Carrey. I said early on when I first learned this movie was coming out and Knuckles was going to be in it, that's who I was really going to see it for. And when I learned who was voicing him, that made me want to go see it even more. And then the first one, I really enjoyed it. So I just have to throw my disclaimer in there right quick before I really get into this review. So Sonic the Hedgehog 2, of course, is the sequel and follow-up to the first Sonic the Hedgehog that came out in 2020. And ironically, it was probably one of the last biggest movies that came out in 2020 because it happened right before the pandemic. And it was a phenomenal movie, made a lot of money. I just knew a sequel was on the way, especially with how it ended. So basically in this one, the movie is basically about Sonic is back. He has to go on like a big mission. This is probably one of the biggest missions that Sonic will ever have to go on that he really didn't know he had to go on until he came across Knuckles and Tails. As we all know, Knuckles and Tails are two huge parts of the Sonic universe, especially via the video games and even the animated series back in the 90s. And the whole mission that Sonic has to go on is he has to go and find the Master Emerald. The Master Emerald is a green gem. And if you played the video games, you know exactly what the Master Emerald is. It's a green gem that basically grants ultimate power. Basically, whatever you concoct in your mind is what will happen in reality. And of course, you know, the main character that wants that Master Emerald for evil is none other than Eggman, or Dr. Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey. That's the whole mission. And also the Knuckles character responsibility is to guard the Master Emerald. That's his whole mission, is defending it and making sure that no one can get access to it. But of course, you know, Dr. Robotnik has ulterior motives and basically tricks Knuckles into basically leading him to that Master Emerald by quote unquote befriending him. But you know, he's not to be trusted. But you know, Knuckles has this one track mind of just protect the Emerald and keep anyone away. But of course, you know, Dr. Robotnik tells him in so many words that Sonic is the one that's trying to get it. And he's the one you got to get out of the way. That way he can get in and take the Master Emerald for himself. So we have all the original cast back in this movie. We get introduced to two new characters. One we got introduced to in the post-credit scene of the first movie, which of course was Tails when he came through the portal and went to go look for Sonic. And I like how they did it. They basically, it's almost like they went back a little bit and show some things that we didn't see. Because remember, if you kind of put it together, Tails did not come through the portal until a little bit later after some other things have occurred. And now he's coming in there because he has to find Sonic, because Sonic is the person that they're looking for. Because they know that Knuckles is on the way there to find Sonic. And basically, Tails has to act as a person or a being that is to warn Sonic of what's to come, because Sonic doesn't know who Knuckles is. Sonic doesn't even know that there's other beings out there quite like him. Or in that same, I guess you could say that same realm or in that same world. He probably thinks he's the only one of his kind, but he's really not. And, you know, so that's Tails' mission. Come and help Sonic. Just like how Tails was in the game, basically be the wingman, quote unquote. It's crazy called a wingman, considering the Tails that he has uses wings or propellers to get him from one place to another. The other character that we get introduced to, which I think is the true MVP, is none other than Knuckles. When I found out that they were going to bring Knuckles into this movie, I got excited instantly, like many other people did, because Knuckles is a fan favorite. And what makes this even better is that Knuckles is being voiced by none other than Idris Elba. I thought that was a very perfect person to get. I think a lot of people were kind of worried because, you know, Idris Elba has a British accent because, you know, he's from over in, you know, the UK, I think London or somewhere over there. So people were wondering, is he going to use his accent, his natural born, you know, accent for this role? But I was like saying to myself, Knuckles doesn't have a British accent. And he actually did a very good job of doing Knuckles, even to the point where he almost kind of sounded like how Knuckles does in the game. So it's almost like he probably looked up how the Knuckles sound. He probably had a voice coach, and he, to do the voicing of this character the right way, because this is a huge iconic character. You don't want to mess something like that up, especially since Knuckles is a very strong, serious, no nonsense type of character. Even though in the movie they did give Knuckles some kind of comedic, elements. Like it was one part in the movie where they was reading off the text messages, and he was reading the text messages word for word. And if you have an iPhone, this would sound familiar to you or look familiar to you. When someone's sending you a message, if you have like an iMessage or something like that, it'll have those dots going across like it's someone's loading the text message to you, and he's looking at the text message and he's going dot, dot, dot. As every dot is lining up, he keeps saying dot, dot, dot. So I thought that was kind of funny. So they did give a comedic element to a very serious character, but not to the point where he was a clown, which I'm glad they did not do, because they could have went that route with that character. But I'm so glad they didn't do it, because that would have took me out of it. Like, we didn't come to see Knuckles be funny or be a clown. The puns is left for the Sonic character, because that's the kind of character that he is. He gets business done, but he always has a pun somewhere in the, in his repertoire. One of the things I really liked about the movie is the interactions that Sonic and Knuckles had with each other, more so when they were fighting each other. And I think in the movie they had two major fight scenes. The first one was when they first encountered each other, and then the second one, which was the best fight that they had, when they were battling over the Master Emerald. And that fight with them battling over the Master Emerald, even though we know Knuckles is strong as shit, especially when he punches, because that's his strength, but he's fast too. Sonic has the speed, but Sonic was not backing down either, even though Knuckles in a way did get the best of him in the end. But it's not like he was taking all the hits and he wasn't able to dish any out. So I'm glad that they kind of had the matches or the fights between those two characters be not so much even, but not so one-sided to the point where it was unrealistic at the same time. Now, I know how we feel about Jim Carrey currently at this moment, but I have to touch on his character, because his character plays a very big role in the movie of being Dr. Robotnik. So he is now back. He's found a way. I'm not going to say how he did it. He's found a way to get off of the mushroom planet that he got knocked into from the first film. And he's been there for quite some time. And he's found a way to get off of that planet. And now all he's trying to do is find Sonic. That's his mission, is to find Sonic. And then he eventually learns that there's a Master Emerald, or a great and ultimate power. And, that kind of sends, shockwaves to his brain, because he's all about getting ultimate power and using it for evil. When he learns that there's an Master Emerald, he's going to find any way to get to it. And I'm going to say this. When Dr. Robotnik does get his hands on the Master Emerald, because it's not so much a spoiler. If you look at the trailer, you can kind of tell that he did get it. When he does get the Master Emerald, that's at that moment, that's when I said, that is Dr. Robotnik. Not saying what we got in the first one wasn't, because it was more of an introduction to his character. So they're not going to flesh the true Dr. Robotnik out there, the true evil Dr. Robotnik that we've all come to know. But this time, when he gets a hold of that Master Emerald and he brings up that death bot, I'm telling you, that's one thing I liked about the movie, is that they pull so many things, or little references from the game. And I'm going to tell you what some of them were. With the death bot being one of them. It looked like I was watching a boss battle, a Sonic boss battle on screen. Like when Sonic and Tails and Knuckles had to fight against the death bot, it was literally like watching the Sonic video game on the big screen. And they executed it so perfectly, especially for a movie screen, because you got to think, on a small scale, when you're playing the game, you got to think at that time, it was in the 90s, so the technology and the graphics weren't that good. I mean, they were good for the time, but the way that they were translated onto screen was very, very good. I really enjoyed how they were able to do that. Now, some of the other references they did was the snowboarding part. I believe that was in the Sonic 3 game. The part where he's snowboarding down the mountain. It's a level or a mission where he's snowboarding. That was in the movie. It was a part where he was underwater. And Sonic, I like that they implemented. Sonic does not like water because Sonic can't swim, which is something he could not do in the game. And if you notice in some of the games, he had to, if he had to do something where he had to get out of the water, there were these bubbles that would come down and he would have to suck on the bubble in order to get air and oxygen back into to his body. And they actually did that and showed that in the movie with one of the scenes where he was underwater and he sucked in a bubble, an air bubble, so he could breathe more, so he can get oxygen. So I picked up on that instantly. Those who were not around during that time and never played those games would never understand the references. It was even a part where it was a wedding scene. They showed it in the trailer where the phone rings and it's playing, the ringtone that's playing is from one of the levels in one of the Sonic games. I'm not sure exactly what Sonic game that was, but that was one of the theme songs for one of the levels in the game. I think it was the Emerald Hills or something like that. Someone can correct me down in the comments, but I liked the references that they pulled into this movie from the game. So it's adding a little bit of a nostalgia feel to it that us who are adults remember when we were kids. Now, the kids nowadays probably wouldn't catch a lot of it unless their parents put them on game, literally on game. But, you know, like I said, like I actually had, unlike Morbius, I had more pros than cons with it. And I gave you mainly most of my pros with this one. But I had one major con with this movie. And that's with the sister, with Tikka Sumpter's sister, the woman who plays her sister in this movie, who also played her sister in the first movie. And some people actually had a gripe with this as well, especially a lot of black people. They did not like how in the first movie they made her sister seem like a mammy. Basically, you have this black woman, you know, dark skin, well, maybe more so my complexion, on the big side, being loud and whatever, and just being loud, like, you know, the stereotype. They didn't like that. Well, they did it again in this movie, but they amplified it. Like everything, like pretty much the scene with the wedding, because the wedding was in Hawaii and she was, you know, upset because it got crashed, literally because they threw the ring and the portal opened and a whole bunch of snow came in because there was a whole snowboarding scene. And she just got loud, and it seemed like she just stayed loud from that point for like the next 10 minutes. And then on top of that, they focused in my opinion, way too much on that wedding sequence than they needed to. Like they could have cut down some time on that. But I'm wondering if it was because they wanted to give Tikka Sumpter more screen time, because she did get more screen time in this movie than she did the first one. And you can definitely tell. And her time to shine really was in this wedding sequence. If you go see the movie, you'll see exactly what I mean. But I just hate that they did the same thing again with the sister and the being loud and the stereotype. And like I said, they amplified it even more. And I was like, oh my God. It got to the point where that was very cringe to watch. And it was like, at first, it kind of took me out of the movie in that moment, because I'm like, this doesn't feel like a Sonic movie anymore. Because in that whole sequence where it was her being a stereotype, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, even Dr. Robotnik were not even in existence in those scenes. To the point where if someone was to have walked in the middle of the movie at that part right there, and they think that they're paying to watch Sonic the Hedgehog 2, they would have been like, what am I watching? Mainly because, like I said, they spent too much time on that scene. And it just was a lot really going on. Like I said, if they wanted to keep that in for comedic effect, fine. But it didn't need to be that long. In my honest opinion, that scene ran way too long. Anybody who has seen the movie knows exactly what I'm talking about. That scene, that part literally stayed in the back of my mind for the rest of the movie because I had to remember it for this review. But that was probably my biggest issue with the movie, was that whole sequence right there. And it's like, that part could have been cut down some. It was needed for the movie, for the storyline for her, because she was supposed to be getting married. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's actually more to it than just her supposed to be getting married. But they could have cut down a little bit on that. If I'm being honest, I'm guessing they needed to stretch it out for more time. Really, honestly, to me, that was more of a filler scene. You know how you have episodes of a show and they need to find something to insert in there to, you know, I guess it's not really guiding the story along, but they're throwing it in there. But it doesn't really make sense because it has no relationship to the previous episode, and it probably won't have any relation to the next episode. Filler episode. This was a filler scene. And that's exactly what I take it as, and that's how I feel about that. But that was my major con to the movie. The story was great. The graphics were better. I can tell they got a bigger budget this time around, as they should. The graphics was great. The action was on point. I really enjoyed this movie, minus my one major con that I had with it. And yeah, there's definitely going to be a third one, but we kind of already knew that after the first one, because there's one character that a lot of people are looking forward to even more than Knuckles. And let me just put it this way. That character is definitely coming. I can pretty much confirm that. I'm not going to say which character it is, but I'm sure many of you are probably typing it down in the comments right now. With that being said, I'm going to end the review on that note. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. If there's a movie that you will go see. If you have children, will you take your kids to see it? Nieces, nephews, younger cousins? Are you going to take them to watch this movie, or are you going to just wait for it to come on streaming? With that being said, I'll talk to y'all later.